Good morning, everyone, and thank you very much for being here today in this great city of Worcester, the heart of our Commonwealth, and just really appreciate your interest in these issues, all of the partners who make this possible, to Andre and the whole team for all the planning that's necessary to get people together in a room like this, and to attract some very interesting speakers. Obviously, with Governor Glendening coming here today from Maryland to talk about his Smart Growth America plans, to have Dan Burden, I wish I could hear you later, talk about blue zones, but maybe you'll be coming back to the Commonwealth and maybe even in this city to talk about how we can see that happen more here in Massachusetts. And of course, other speakers as well, including Crystal Cornegay from our Department of Housing and Community Development. She's terrific and will speak a lot about some of the initiatives that we're working on in our administration. I would like to just first start by thanking Ed Augustus for welcoming all of us to this city and highlighting some of the things that are now really coming to fruition here in the city. And it's taken, a decade-long planning process with a lot of focus and attention and collaboration to really think out what the vision is for this city and transitioning it into a very modern and exciting and eclectic place for people to be able to afford a good quality of life. It's really a great place for the 35,000 plus students who go to school here in the greater Worcester area to then think, maybe I'll continue to live here in the great city of Worcester, lay my roots, begin my career, and therein begins that young professional's experience here in the heart of our Commonwealth. And if they choose to work in Boston, they can get on that nonstop train at 8:05 and get into Boston and come home and have an affordable and good lifestyle here in Worcester. But it goes to point out that it takes a lot of planning for a city like Worcester to turn around, and it is indeed the work that you're doing here, doing in your respective organizations and in your communities that make that truly possible. So what I'd like to do is just take a few minutes to talk about how our administration views our planning for preparing communities for success and really laying the foundation for economic investments that we can make to leverage for private investment to come forward and really help grow our communities from one end of the state to the other. And our overarching theme for our administration is let's make Massachusetts great everywhere. We've had success in our gateway cities, so let's continue to build on the success in our gateway cities. But let's make sure we're connecting with smaller cities and rural communities and suburban communities, from the Berkshires to the islands, and all 351 great communities in between. So when coming into office, we actually had to figure out now, how are we going to do that? And so part of it is to really think about the role of government. And from our point of view, state government shouldn't be directive, shouldn't be heavy-handed, shouldn't be mandating activities. We should be sponsoring and encouraging and growing the grassroots and the leadership at the local level so that each community can lay out their vision and achieve their overall goals. So when we think about what makes a great community, there are three basic things, right? Think about your own place where you live, think about where you grew up, think about where you're focusing your efforts. You obviously need great schools. People want to live in a place, especially if you're a parent, where kids can access great schools. So we need to really make sure that's possible everywhere. Urban, suburban, rural, everywhere. We obviously need to have safe communities. That safety net, not just our police and our fire, who are essential and we depend upon them every day, but go back to what Ed Augustus was talking about, safety, health, and wellness. We've got an opiate epidemic in Massachusetts. How do we make our communities safer? How do we make it healthier for people to live and move around and connect to the places that they need to go? So that whole safety and wellness piece is a key part of making a strong community. Then, of course, we need those jobs and opportunities everywhere, not just in the eastern part of the state, in Boston, our capital city, but in each region of our Commonwealth. And how do we figure out what that regional strength is? Or what are the natural assets that exist in this region, and how can we leverage them and play those up to really help create an economic viability and vitality in each of these places so that we can then see that circle fill out. Good schools, the safety net, and then jobs and opportunities for people to earn a good living and enjoy the passion of work and the dignity of work in their lives. So how are we doing that? The basic foundation comes in threefold in my view. First of all, sharing state resources. And it's just the bread and butter of state government. We need to make sure that the unrestricted aid gets to our cities and towns. That's why we promised that we would increase local aid to cities and towns by the same rate of growth of state revenues. And we've done that in our budgets. Making sure that Chapter 90 funds, it's not really sexy to talk about roads and sidewalks and Chapter 90 funds, but it's essential, right, to make sure that those funds reach the communities, to make sure that you're preparing roads and maintaining sidewalks, because all of that has to get done. And then, of course, the Chapter 70 piece to make sure that schools get the services and support that they need. So the basic foundation are resources. Predictable, with certainty, those funds flow state government to local government so that local leaders can plan ahead. Then, of course, we took it on to modernize and help modernize local government. We asked one simple question last year when we came into office. How can state government better serve you as local leaders? And guess what? We got over 1,300 ideas about how to make it better. And we took a lot of those ideas and we put them into a municipal modernization bill. Now, this is a 200-page, detail-focused, in-the-weeds kind of bill, but it represents that there's a real need to modernize the way local government delivers service. Technology needs to be embedded in local government. There are rules and regulations that have been on the books for years that just need to be peeled back and taken off the books so that local leaders can spend more time on the things that are important in delivering local service. So that bill is making its way through the legislature, and we've got one of our representatives here, and I know the others are really interested in seeing that happen before the end of the legislative session. Very, very important. And then the other piece is where I spend a whole lot of my time, traveling throughout the state. And it's just a great experience to show up in places, as large as a city like Worcester, which is my home base, so I'm always happy to come here, but then to show up into communities that have less than 1,000 in population and have a very different set of resources available to them to deliver services. So we hit the whole spectrum. And the Community Compact program that we started over a year ago really came out of the ideas that were brought to us by local managers and school committee members and superintendents and, yes, managers as sophisticated as Ed Augustus, who sat on our roundtable to educate us about how to create this community compact. So we created a compact that can reach all of the communities. First of all, it's voluntary. It's not a mandate. It's a voluntary program. You decide if you want to participate. Then second of all, you as local leaders decide, what do you want to accomplish in your community? And it really sort of forces the local leadership and the local team to come together in your room where you do your planning and your thinking and your decision making around, where is our community today? But more importantly, where do we want to be over the next 10, 20, 30 years, and how are we going to get there? So then that local leadership team decides what best practice do we want to work on. And we provide a whole menu of options. You can go on our website and you can see the Community Compact program, lots of best practices to choose from transportation to capital planning to master planning to looking for more efficient ways to reduce your energy costs to becoming a green community, all sorts of good things. But you decide, what do you want to focus on? And then guess what? We fund it. We provide the technical assistance and the resources or a grant for you to hire a third party consultant to actually help you achieve that best practice. I know that the Worcester Regional Planning Group here with Janet Pierce serves as a partner with us in this program. They're helping us achieve these best practices locally in the greater Worcester area. And we have partners with UMass Collins Center and others to help us achieve these best practices. So, to date, we have extended over $3.5 million in grants through this program. And guess what? Out of 351 cities and towns, by the end of the day today, 221 communities will have signed in to the Community Compact. That represents almost 600 plus best practices underway throughout our Commonwealth at the local level, really doing what we intended, which is to prepare communities for success, strengthen local leadership, and moreover, think about the planning for your future. And that's exactly what's being accomplished through the program. Now, we also know that people like to sort of get rewarded for good behavior. You know, and in our view, we don't want to be called and say we're in trouble, come rescue us. We'd rather be able to intervene and help prepare communities before they get into trouble, but we also want to reward the communities that are making a lot of good decisions every single day and reward them for being a part of the Community Compact. So we decided to plug in statewide grants into this program, and if you're a Community Compact program, you get extra points on the scoring sheets for the statewide grants. Whether it's a Complete Streets grant, and we put in $12.5 million to the Complete Streets program. You can use the compact to achieve the best practice to develop a Complete Streets plan, which will then make you eligible to apply for the $12.5 million fund to then implement Complete Streets in your downtown or in a neighborhood where you want to make it possible for people to connect by walking or biking or making it more accessible to people with disabilities. That can happen through this compact program. Or maybe you know about an area that is ripe for development, but you need a master plan. And if you get your master plan through this compact program, then you can apply to the MassWorks program. And when you apply to the MassWorks program, which is a competitive grant program, you'll get extra points on your scoring sheet, and maybe you'll get the state grant through the MassWorks program, then attract that private developer to bring market rate housing into your community. And when you have more market rate housing and people moving around a neighborhood, guess what? They need more shops and restaurants and places to go. And therein comes a neighborhood that transitions into something more viable. So that's what's happening through the Compact program. We're also seeing a really strong need for technology to embed in local government. We had a $2.5 million grant round for IT. We had over $16 million of requests, so we know we're going to do more to embed technology into our grant program. I'd also like to make a little bit of an announcement prior to it happening in July. EOEA will be offering land use planning grants to help communities and regional planning agencies develop plans and other land use regulations consistent with the Massachusetts Sustainable Development Principles as well. That will be coming in July, and it's also tied into the Compact program, so you should be looking forward to that opportunity in July as well. So, let me just close with just how does this fit into our economic development plan. So you think about Massachusetts. What we love about this state, and others who have not maybe grown up here like I have in Central Mass and have now come to know Massachusetts and the experience here, we're so rich in our history and the story of the American Revolution. And I mean, you can literally, go down different streets and come across incredible landmarks and historical places here in the Commonwealth. And that's what really is exciting about living here. But it's also exciting to know that we are the most innovative state in the country, that businesses are emerging here and growing here and coming here because of the ecosystem that exists here, largely because of our educational institutions, both public and private, that are really growing people with skills, that are attracting employers, and really making it an exciting place to grow a business and just to be around. So we know that we need to invest in this economy, and that's why our economic development plan, which has emerged, is all about investing in this innovation economy and really planting these seeds for innovation and opportunity throughout our Commonwealth. Also coming through the legislative process is the Economic Development Bill. We are ramping up MassWorks infrastructure grants to the tune of over $500 million of authorization. That's a pretty big number. We're also reprogramming $75 million in the brownfields redevelopment so we can take those hard-to-develop sites and repurpose them into developable properties. We're putting $50 million into the Gateway Cities development through the Transformative Development Initiative. Many of you know that when you are able to identify a neighborhood that needs transition and define it, and then be able to make it such that that neighborhood can transition with certain statewide grants, it's really truly is transformative. We have hired through Mass Development fellows in each of these TDI districts in places like Pittsfield and Holyoke and New Bedford and Lynn, and I'm visiting the TDI in Springfield this afternoon. And these fellows are really preparing these neighborhoods within a 2-year period of time for that transformation. I want to shout out to the creative economy as well, because in these TDIs, embedding creative and arts and music will also help to transform these neighborhoods, and thank you for partnering with us there. We're also putting $25 million into site assembly and also industrial parks. So when you're thinking about rural and suburban areas, thinking about the right places to put industry and commercial tax dollars into a community really helps stabilize a budget for a community, but in the right places, they can really be transformational. And putting $25 million into the Smart Growth Housing Production Fund through 40R. You'll hear Crystal Cornegay talk about our starter home overlay districts in suburban communities, really helping attract people to want to own a home in these neighborhoods. Using the HDIP funds to close those gaps to attract private developers to want to build market rate housing in those areas where TDI districts exist that are difficult to do. We're talking about parking management districts. When you bring parking garages like Worcester knows into downtown areas, you can really attract more development and housing in the right places to really make things happen. So I'm going to close on a really good note with one more announcement, and that is relative to our MassWorks infrastructure fund. I think everybody knows the power of those dollars. And that tomorrow, Friday, June 3rd, we are opening the 2016 MassWorks Infrastructure Program Round. So it requires you as planners and thinkers about what kind of projects do you want to apply for and how we can partner with you to see those dollars reach those areas to help transform, to help reinvigorate, to help repurpose certain areas and places here in our Commonwealth. So today is all about partnership, collaboration, and thinking ahead. We have a great state from one end of the state to the other. Let's make it even stronger and better, not only for the people that are here today, but for our children and theirs, and those that want to know the Massachusetts experience. Thank you all, and have a great day, and visiting the neighborhood tomorrow in Worcester.